Well, it's late spring and the danger of frost has passed, so we decided today that we would set up our two rain barrels. We have one on the shed and one on the garage, and both of them feed our garden. This is the one from the garage. Uh, we got this one because of the style of it, but frankly, it wasn't worth the money we paid for it. We got this at a big box store. Um, all of the connections were plastic. It broke the first time I put it together, and we ended up replacing it with brass faucets and such. And then we had a hard time sealing it, so there was a couple tubes of rubber sealant involved, and it's going to go right on where that water can is. This is the second one we got from through the city from a company in Vermont, and whoever built this knows what they're doing. This was actually less money than the one at the big box store, and it came with a very sturdy faucet and all of the parts that go with it. So I start with this one on the garage. I'm going to take the debris screen off first. All of my parts are inside the tank, and that's how we store it for the winter. We clean it out and then we put all the parts in there and put the screen back on, and then we don't lose them. It's two small screws, and the screen is just a plastic affair um, that, that comes off easily. And then that lower bin there is for any overflow coming out of the gutters that will go into that. And here I'm tilting it up carefully to shift everything down to the hole. And then it's such a small hole that it's difficult to get all the parts out of there, but it's still the best way to store them for the winter. There's always one part that doesn't want to come out. Okay. The next thing is put the screen back so we don't lose that and the screws. And then we can open up the debris holes on that back um, container there. I'm really not sure why they even put that there. I would have rather seen a bigger screen and and such, but there's a better view of that. Now, when I first got this, there were no holes here, and it would fill up and mosquitoes would get in there in the summer and stuff. So I've drilled some holes in this piece so that water doesn't collect in there, but and they have to be cleaned out periodically. So that's what I'm doing here. All right, now we're ready to take the what I call the winter downspout down, and that downspout hooks up to a pipe in the ground so the water doesn't puddle there by the end of the corner of the garage. It's just a few screws that little side brackets hold it on, and then we can pull that right off. And now this, you fold that out of the way and the whole thing comes right off. You can see where it hooked into the base. It goes underground. And apparently my elbow at the top wasn't hooked on, so that came off too. Now I put up a smaller piece that's it's short so that it will meet the top of the tank. And this is where I could probably use another hand. Now I'm folding those aluminum bands back over, and then just putting the same screws back in the same hole. And we do this, like I said, every spring and every fall. So the hole is getting quite big now, but it still works well. I trim that bush back every year, but it seems to grow with a vengeance. Okay, now I can place the barrel and get a feel for where it's going to go, how it'll look. And then I go to screw the bottom elbow on and realize that the connection is actually made behind that band. So now I've got to remove the band I just put on and connect that bottom piece and then put it all back together again without having it fall. You can actually see how the holes weren't lining up. There we go. And it fell. It doesn't take much to hold it in place. It's because it's so light, and even when there's water running down it, it's never really full, so it doesn't have a lot of weight. Now I'm hooking up the overflow, which it does overflow, so that will go through this hose and down into that pipe in the ground, and it goes off to a dry well about 50 feet away. It keeps it away from the foundation. And that's just a pressure fit. And then we found that by hooking a short hose at the bottom, it's easier to fill watering cans, which is our method of watering, is with watering cans. So you see me making sure that it's in the off position. This is important because when you get your first rain, you want the water to stay in the barrel and not run out on the ground. Not that that's ever happened to me, but it's a valid concern. Now while I'm out here, I'm going to check the gutters for debris. Even though the screen would catch it, if I can stop it up at the top, I will. And there's a little bit of stuff in there, but I don't usually get too much stuff in this gutter. So we'll just clean it out while we're here. We have pine trees nearby, and we get a lot of pine needles blowing in there. And that's about it for this setup. It's simple as that. Just got the downspout shortened and the tank in place. Now here's the tank by the shed. And you'll see I label this one because I kept getting it mixed up with the garage, even though it's a different size. So I've got shed written on it. This is a lot simpler to do. The folks in Vermont seem to have their stuff together, and they put this thing together. Well, look how easy it is to open, and then I can just dump my parts right out. It's a lot easier to clean too. In the fall, I can bleach it out, and I just tilt it up and dump everything out. The corrugated hose and the screen comes with a kit. The other two pieces I supplied. Now it's going to go right on that stone block. So I'll put the top back on, screw that down. This is a food grade plastic barrel that the company supplied with. So there's really no, you don't get any chemical smell or anything, residue. You can't drink the water, but it's still good for the garden. So here I've got the downspout, the winter downspout, and this is screwed in 4 places. So I've got to remove those small screws and drop it. And there it goes. I'll put that aside. That will get stored in the garage for the summer. And then I put my rain barrel piece up. Just slide it in there. And then I have to run the screws back in through those clips to hold it. And these clips and the screws, all of this stuff you see me using, you can get this at the hardware store. They're very common parts. If you have a battery operated drill, it works a little easier for you than you see me struggling with this corded unit. And it doesn't really have to be perfect. The water is going to flow down that downspout no matter what. It's going to end up in the rain barrel, and that's the end of it. So you're not really graded on it. I just like to get the screws in there while I've got them. Now I've got my barrel in place. I hook my overflow tube. Now I don't have an underground pipe over here, so I'll run that into just a regular watering can. But I gotta hook up I have this little flexible piece that takes the water from the downspout right to the tank. And that just pressure fits right on there. Those are available at the hardware store too. They expand and contract, and they're really good for situations like this. And that's that. Now I put my screen in, and that's just a typical screen that you would get for a kitchen sink. You find those at the hardware store too. And here I'm putting on my extension hose, which I will also make sure that it is shut off. And that's, again, handy when you're doing watering cans or a bucket or something. This came from a place called Jack's Rain Barrels in Vermont. I'll put a link to their site down below in the comments. I highly recommend them. Here's my watering can. So that's it. I got 2 rain barrels hooked up. That's a 12-foot gutter there, and that will fill that tank. So if anyone tells you you can't do it off a shed, don't believe them. And now while I'm here, I'll check this gutter. Oddly, this is closer to the pine trees, but I get less debris on this one. So I haven't figured that out yet. And project done. There we go. Now we just gotta let it rain. I gotta watch it in the wind. These will blow around if there's no water in them. So I'd like to keep an eye on them. I suppose I could tether them to the building, but I haven't got that far yet. Again, there's the screen. You can buy those in the plumbing section. They're a couple bucks. And the boss is coming to check it out. There she is, Miss Maggie. Make sure everything was done up to code. She's my supervisor outside. And she keeps the squirrels away too. She does a pretty good job. I don't know what she'd do if she ever caught one, but she keeps them away. Well, that might be another squirrel she sees. I gotta go, Dad. I'll go get him. Where'd he go? Where did he go? And here's the other one, a good shot of the other one. So that's all set to go. Pretty soon we'll be watering. You can see tomato plants here in the wagon. They won't go out for another 2 weeks, but they're just acclimating now. So that water just comes down, runs right into that tank. This one fills up fast, very fast. So thanks for stopping by. Check out my other videos on YouTube. Subscribe to my channel, please, and you'll see all the new ones when I put them out. Thanks a lot.